Hey everybody, welcome back to the Point. We're all doing well. Been off for the last week, but we're back, locked and loaded today. Good little break following the Super Bowl. It's just took a little break from the podcast, but we're back. Excited to be back live with all of you. So tonight we're gonna talk some NHL. Auston Matthews on quite a tear for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Impressive stuff. And the Maple Leafs have not lost since Morgan Riley got suspended, which, interesting. Is there something there? We'll talk about it. Jarmo fired in Columbus after 12 years. I have some thoughts on this, and I'm going to praise Columbus, or one of the few times I ever will, likely, on this podcast. Are the Florida Panthers the best team in the NHL? I have my thoughts on that. They just might be. Stadium Series this past weekend will react to what went down in the New York area. Talk some PGA. Hideki Matsuyama wins the Genesis. Tiger had to withdraw. Cantlay Sunday. Bill Zalatoris, is he back? Lots of thoughts there. So we got a locked and loaded show for all of you. Baseball is back. Spring training, ongoing. Spring training games we played Thursday. Recently, Liam Hendriks got signed by the Boston Red Sox to a 2-year deal. Blue Jays adding minor league contracts. Some guys that might be players that make the team eventually. Daniel Vogelback, a great DH who has some power in his bat. They have Cabrera, who they brought in, who can play some, or Escobar, who can play some infield. But in baseball, Cody Bellinger, Blake Snell, the 5 Boris clients remain unsigned. It is February 20th. The season starts in a little over a month. So no pressure points yet. But when that news comes online, I will be sure to discuss it with all of you. But we're starting today with the UFC. Saturday night was UFC 298, the second pay-per-view of 2024. And it featured a great main event battle between the greatest featherweight to ever compete in UFC, Alexander the Great Volkanovski, and the rising star, Ilia Topuria. Volkanovski had defended his title 5 straight times, including twice beating Max Holloway. You had him beating Brian Ortega, dominating Yair Rodriguez last year. He's the best. He's beaten everybody. He takes on all challengers. He does not back down. There aren't many holes in the game of Alexander Volkanovski. Then you had Ilia Topuria out of Georgia and Spain. 27, brash, young, arrogant, undefeated fighter who in his Instagram bio 2 weeks before the fight had UFC featherweight champion already locked in. He was sure he was going to beat Volk, said he was going to knock him out, and that he was the future. The best, and he was saying he was never going to give a title shot to Max Holloway, to a number of different fighters, already without being champion. Going into this fight, Volkanovski was the slight favorite, despite the fact that Alex had gotten knocked out via head kick from Islam Makhachev back in October, where he took a fight on 11 days' notice, up a weight class. And, you have a quick turnaround. He talked about drinking a lot in his last camp. And, just having that kind of a knockout, what it will do to you throughout your career. Well, Saturday night, I thought the first round was very close. Volkanovski, great on the feet, limiting the damage, fighting in close. And you could argue he took the first round. But this is a lot like Sean O'Malley against Aljamain Sterling. O'Malley beat, to me, the greatest bantamweight champion ever in Aljamain Sterling. Aljamain won the first round. We get to the second round. O'Malley hits him with a huge right hook, gets the finish, Sean O'Malley is now the bantamweight champion of the world. The upstart beating the GOAT of the division. Second round, it's going through. And Topuria catches Volk with a right hook and turns his lights out. An absolute knockout, a no-doubter, and Ilia Topuria becomes the featherweight champion of the world. To me, he became a superstar overnight because he backed up all of his promises. Arrogant, brash, you could say unlikable, a true heel in the UFC space. You're used to seeing this in wrestling, where a guy is just disliked because he's a heel, he's an asshole, he's Kurt Angle in the prime, he's what The Rock is trying to do in WWE right now when he was a heel. The best guys do it so effectively that even some fans start to like you when you're a heel because you are so out there. Topuria has the fans in the United States because he can speak English, and he has the fans in Spain, in Georgia, in Europe because he can speak multiple languages over there. He looks like a superstar. He's got the tattoos. He has a beautiful girlfriend. And he is that heel. He says he's going to be the greatest featherweight in the history of the UFC. Better than Jose Aldo. Better than Conor McGregor. And he goes and knocks him out in brutal fashion. He's a superstar. He's one of the most marketable people the UFC has right now. If we're thinking about where the UFC is going, Jon Jones is a to-be-determined product. He's not reliable. He's injured constantly. He fails drug tests like nobody's business. He can't pass one. But he's injured a lot. He's fought once in the last 4 years. Jon Jones may have 1-2 fights left in him, so he's not a guy that you can really market around because that's not where he's going to be. Daniel Cormier is retired. George St. Pierre is retired. Khabib Nurmagomedov is not going to return. Islam Makhachev is a superstar. He's beaten Volkanovski twice. He's beaten Charles do Bronx Oliveira, who's a champion, who's a great in the sport, a future UFC Hall of Famer. So you have him. To me, Leon Edwards is not a superstar. He's a boring fighter. They wanted to book him for UFC 300, which we will talk about, but you had to throw a name that was more presentable, that was more circumstantial than Leon Edwards in the fight for people to care about it. Good fighter, good champion. Is Leon Edwards a superstar? No, because his fighting style and also his personality is a skid mark of a personality. Pantoja, I like him. My favorite division in all of fighting is 125 pounds. They're the most agile. They're the most athletic. It's the most entertaining division, bar none. To me, it's not even close. But he doesn't speak that good English, so you can't do it. Female fighters, Amanda Nunes, gone. Nope, someone needs to establish himself. You can go through the lists. Alex Oliveira is because he doesn't even speak English, but he is because of what he's done. Beating Israel Adesanya, beating Yuri Prohaska, becoming a 2-division champion inside of 4 years during his UFC career is crazy stuff. But the accolades and just his demeanor has made him a pseudo-superstar. But Topuria has everything that you'd want. He's calling out Conor McGregor after winning his fight. That fight's never going to happen. The UFC can't get Conor McGregor signed to fight Michael Chandler seemingly any time. That fight could have been made anywhere. They're both healthy. They're ready to go. Chandler hasn't fought since November of 2022. And nothing. No fights. Nothing booked. But it opens up options for him. This coming weekend, Mexico City, Ilia Topuria, who fought Alexander Volkanovski in July of 2023. Lost that fight. Was really dominated. Thought maybe he's the guy that's going to break through, and he couldn't do it against Volk. He gets Brian Ortega, who will be returning for the first time since July of 2022. With Ilia as champion, if either of those two men win the fight in impressive fashion, could be next for the 145-pound title because it's fresh blood. Because it's Ilia Topuria. Volk had beaten both those guys. It's not as interesting. It's not as fresh. With Ilia, there are options. Do you want to have this next fight in Spain? Him in his home country. Returning home, defending the strap. Certainly a compelling idea. Or are there other options? Does Volkanovski deserve a rematch? I don't think it's a crazy sentiment. I think if the UFC, you're worried that Volkanovski might be a little bit punch drunk and he's at the tail end of his career. He's 35 years old. He's been durable. He's been great. He's been everything the UFC would want in a champion. Saying yes every time, quick turnarounds, taking a fight on 11 days' notice in Abu Dhabi against one of the most dangerous men on the planet. But you get knocked out in back-to-back fights. He had not lost back-to-back fights ever in his pro fighting career, let alone the UFC. So you have 2 losses in a row. He's a lot younger than you. He punches hard. Do you want to do that? I would make the argument it's more box office than anything else they can do at 145 pounds. Topuria, Yair Rodriguez is interesting because Yair went on MMA Hour with Yair Hawani last week, and basically I hate Ilia Topuria. I think he's a piece of shit. I want to fight. I want to kick his ass. He doesn't show any respect. So if he can win, there's heat there. The two don't like each other already. Mexico versus Spain. You can sell that for sure. But again, Yair just fought for the belt July 2023, and it wasn't a close fight. It was not close at all. Ortega hasn't fought in a year and a half. Do you want to bring him in right for a title shot after being away from that long? I don't think so. I don't think it makes sense. There's Movsar Evloev, undefeated Russian, just defeated Arnold Allen in January in Toronto. Another undefeated prospect. But Dana White said his fight against Arnold Allen was boring. The worst fight on the card. He did not give it a great. He didn't give it much thought. He said it was a horrible fight. I'm sorry that it went the way it did. I think Evloev's really talented. I mean, he's never lost a fight, for Christ's sake. He's pretty good. I don't think the UFC, I'll even say this, I think there's a 0% chance that Evloev's going to be the next challenger for the belt. Because I don't think they believe he can beat Topuria. I don't think they believe that he can make it an interesting fight. He will need another fight to be in that conversation, to get an opportunity at the belt. I don't think he's just going to swoop in and get it. But Ilia opens up the door, opens up possibilities for the UFC. With Volkanovski, it's predictable. You go, okay, he's beaten Topuria, the next great challenge for him. Where do we go now? Beaten Holloway 3 times. Beaten Yair. Beaten Brian. Arnold Allen's lost 2 in a row. Nope. Josh Emmett, can't really see it. It would be Evloev. Movsar would likely be the next number 1 contender because he would make sense because he had never faced Volkanovski before. You can make the argument that's why Topuria got this title shot because he was 5th in the rankings, but everybody else had lost to Alexander Volkanovski. He had not. He had not been given that opportunity. If I'm the UFC, if you want to go back to Spain, That makes sense. When's that fight going to be? Because next month, you're in Miami. Early May, May 4th, you're in Rio de Janeiro, and that will likely be a pay-per-view headlined by the flyweight champion of the world, Alexander Pantoja. He's Brazilian. You get to go home. You get to defend your belt. That sells well. He's a great fighter and a great champion. So I don't think they'll put another championship fight on the card unless it's a female fight. But I don't see anything happening with that card. There may be another pay-per-view in May, possibly early June, because then you have UFC. You have the UFC 303 in June, which is International Fight Week. That might be Conor McGregor, Michael Chandler. I think it makes the most sense to do it in International Fight Week. I'd load that card up with guys with really good fights, and I'll talk about a few coming up that I'd stack on that card with McGregor, so you don't need a title fight per se. So it doesn't seem like a lesser card, because you can stack just great contender fights on that one in Vegas. But if it's not then, there's a rumored Manchester card in July. That could be Tom Aspinall. That could be Leon Edwards, because you have two champions in the UFC from England right now. Either could headline it. Both could be on it, which would be huge. Then there's a rumored, John Jones wants to fight late July, early August. If John Jones is fighting, it's going to be in the United States. He's not doing that in Spain or anywhere else. So is Ilia going to be off until September? Is he taking that? Is Noche UFCs in September? I don't know. I think knowing Volkanovski, he will want to be back in there before September. It might be the best thing for him to take more time off to heal up. But if he's offered a fight against Ilia Topuria, say, late June, I think he's going to say yes. He wants to get his title back. He wants that vindication to prove that he can do it, that he's not over the hill anymore. But the UFC has options. They have a superstar on their hands. Challengers now knocking at the door, hoping to be the next one to get an opportunity. Can't wait to see what happens. Makes this week's co-main event between Yair Rodriguez and Brian Ortega that much more interesting. Because who comes out on top, if either of them call for the title shot right away, and how Ilia feels about that specific matchup. But I don't believe Volkanovski's done. I think he's too good. We've seen guys come back from this. You get knocked out, you can come back and find a way to get a win. For instance, Robert Whittaker, former middleweight champion of the world, one of the greatest middleweights in the history of the UFC. He got his ass kicked by Dricus du Plessis, the now champion of the world. 2 rounds, complete domination, and Bobby Knuckles looked like he didn't even belong in the same octagon as Dricus du Plessis. He took it on the chin, went home, trained hard, and prepared for a battle against a very dangerous and a very game Paulo Costa. Paulo Costa had not fought since August of 2022. But Costa was 14-2 coming into this fight, and his only 2 losses in the UFC were to Israel Adesanya. Ever heard of him? One of the best fighters in UFC history. So Costa had beaten Luke Rockhold, former champion. He had beaten Yoel Romero, former title challenger. He had gone through the greatest of the greats of the middleweight division, and this was his opportunity to get another win against a former champion. And in the co-main event, these 2 guys showed up. They threw huge shots. But Robert Whittaker did what Robert Whittaker did. He took shots from Costa. He got wobbled at the end of the first round. But he avoided the big head kick. He pounded the legs of Paulo Costa. And his beautiful 1-2 combinations were just too good. I had Robert Whittaker winning all 3 rounds on my scorecard. 2 judges agreed with me, 30-27, but he's a unanimous decision victory for Robert Whittaker, putting him back in the win column following a knockout loss at the age of 35. Costa looked great. He says he hasn't had many major injuries. He'll be ready to come back soon. I hope that's true because I think he's dangerous at 185 pounds. For Whittaker, he is the Reaper. Israel Adesanya is his kryptonite. It's just a bad matchup for him. He struggled in July against Duplessis. But he looked good on Saturday night. He's still moving well for his age. He's still landing those beautiful combinations. And he can battle with anybody in the division. Period. He's third in the rankings. He gets a victory. To me, middleweight's in an interesting position. Because Dricus Duplessis, is not fighting at UFC 300. That's been confirmed. We'll talk about that at the tail end of our UFC segment here. But Dricus fought in July. He's not fighting at UFC 300. When he returns, I don't know. If the UFC is not going to go with Conor McGregor, Michael Chandler for International Fight Week, I would go with Dricus Duplessis against Israel Adesanya. Because the hatred, the heat, the two men can start prepping for their fight now. It sells itself. It's absolutely headline worthy. And it's just easy for the promotion to go, this is our main event, get ready for it. They could announce it tomorrow, and I think people would be ecstatic. For Whittaker, above him is Adesanya, off limits. To me, the next fight for Robert Whittaker is against Sean Strickland. And it's against Sean Strickland to become the next number one contender for the middleweight title. I read today on MMA Fighting that Robert Whittaker may have to miss some time with an injury. Don't know the extent, don't know how long he's going to be out. But if he could be back for July, March, April, May, June, July, 4 months, Strickland against Whittaker, International Fight Week. It's a great fight. It could be the co-main event if Adesanya and Duplessis are on the card, but I would even book this fight on International Fight Week, even if it's McGregor-Chandler. Because McGregor-Chandler might be 185 pounds. We don't know. But these two guys, both former champions. Strickland was very close to beating Dricus Duplessis. Whittaker was not, but Whittaker and Strickland have not fought during their careers. They've both been doing this a long time. They both want the strap again. Makes it, you have Jared Cannonier at number 4, who needs a fight, but that's not the fight I'm doing from the UFC. It's less interesting to me. Look around, Marvin Vettori's fighting Brendan Allen in April. That's off limits. Imamov just fought. Hermanson just fought. So I don't think there's major intrigue where you're going to usurp anybody. This is the fight. It's a good fight. Two guys who like to strike. Great sparring session with big shots, beautiful combinations. And the winner very well, and I think should be said before the fight. It's a number one contender. The winner will get the winner of Duplessis and Israel Adesanya. Even if Adesanya wins, you have to do Whittaker, Adesanya 3. I think you do it. Because the intrigue's there. You do have Khamzat Chimaev lurking. But from what we know, the guy can't get into the U.S. For whatever reason, with his passport, he can't get into the United States. He can't fight. He can only fight certain places. He's not reliable. You can't book him. He can't be your champion if he can't fight in half the world. Where half your events are in the United States, that's a problem. So you have to wait on him. And is he a 170-pounder? Is he a 185-pounder? I don't know. But these make more sense. Costa was very solid. He could fight Jared in the next fight, and I think that'd be fun. Two big strikers looking to hurt each other. But Whittaker, Strickland, interesting styles. Two guys looking for championships. I think it makes a lot of sense, and I'm into it. Third fight on the pay-per-view card. Jeff Neal against Ian Machado Garry. I'll tell you this. I thought Jeff Neal fought very well. Smaller guy fighting the lanky, long Ian Garry. Makes it tough for him to hit. He avoids big shots. But Jeff Neal tried to close the range, tried to get in close. But Garry was never worried. He was never winded. He was in complete control of the fight. Won on all three scorecards. I will say he never really landed any big threatening shots on Jeff Neal. But he's a very good fighter. Using that jab, using those leg kicks and his long legs to his advantage. Defeats Neil Magny. Defeats Jeff Neal. He's a very active fighter. He can beat anybody in the division, and he continues his winning ways. 170 pounds has some problems because you have some interesting guys that are very good. Ian was 10th before the fight. He jumps all the way to 6th, usurping Sean Brady, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, Jeff Neal, and Vicente Luque. So he gets to 6, almost into the top 5. He said, talking to Ariel Helwani for the year, beat Jeff Neal, beat Colby Covington, fight Sean Strickland at 185 pounds. That's what he wants to do. Although he's in a 170-pound division, so that makes it more complicated. But he's very much on the way of being a title contender. For his next fight, if I'm the UFC, I am booking him and Colby Covington. And I'm doing it on International Fight Week in Vegas. Donald Trump will be at that card. I don't think Donald Trump likes Colby Covington. Probably thinks Colby Covington's a clown, which he is. But Ian Garry's talking about it, said, I hope Trump's there. I'm going to go slap him right in front of slap Colby Covington right in front of Trump. Whoop his ass. Colby Covington's made fun of Ian Machado Garry, said certain things about his family. Colby Covington's been saying he wants to fight Stephen Wonderboy Thompson because Wonderboy is in his same age bracket, doesn't defend the takedown all that well, and sees it as a matchup that he can win. Which he's right. It's an easier fight for him, and I understand why he's leaning that way. But this is about business. If I'm the UFC, Colby Covington, Ian Machado Garry does better business. If I have to up Colby Covington's pay to take this fight, if I'm the UFC, I do it. I think Ian's going to whoop his ass. I think Ian's going to win this fight. It might not go that long. But I think people, they don't like Ian Garry, but they hate Colby Covington more. But you might have that Vegas crowd full of, hardcore Republicans, and they might like Colby Covington, hate Machado Garry. There might be that feel to it. that actually Ian is the underdog in this situation. It's 6 versus 5. You have Shavkat Rakhmonov at 3, who's undefeated like Ian Garry. I think there's a 0% chance the UFC does this. I don't think they should. These two guys are both undefeated. You want to keep them undefeated as long as possible. You want them fighting for a title. You want them in that type of situation where they can fight for a belt, and that's where it is. I don't want that ruined in a fight that's not for the belt, because I think very good chance both of them are champion by the time their careers are over. Shavkat can fight Kamaru Usman if Usman wants to return to 170 pounds. Or maybe they'll want to do Shavkat and Leon Edwards, which would be fun as well, which I'm all for. But Ian Garry, he's right. Colby Covington is the fight. He gets another victory, continues to get publicity, grow as a star, make people hate him even more or like him. Either one, people are going to be talking about Ian Garry whooping Colby Covington's ass. He just goes in there and he does business. Not getting as many finishes as he used to, but he still punches hard. He's still an extremely unique, smart fighter that doesn't take huge damage, knows what he's doing, has picked his opponents well, taken advantage of their weaknesses. And Ian Garry, he's an active fighter. He likes to fight 3 to 4 times a year. 170 pounds, a dangerous division. But if I'm Dana White, I'm talking to Colby Covington going, hey, I gave you a title shot when you didn't deserve one. You're going to do me a solid in your fight, Ian Garry. If you can beat an undefeated prospect, you are right back in the title scenario. You looked awful against Leon Edwards. It was a complete horrible performance. You didn't show up. The main event, our last main event of 2023 was a joke of a fight. It was garbage. You showed up in the 5th round when the fight was over. You're going to do me a favor and fight Ian Garry. And it's going to sell, and it's going to be a build to this fight. And you two will hate each other going in, and it's going to do great box office for us. And you're going to get a good payday too. The last big one of your career, because you're not going to beat Ian Garry. He won't tell him that, but I'm telling you guys, he's not beating Ian Garry in that fight. But I would do it. I think Ian's right. For him and the UFC, because I'm not booking him with Shavkat. Gilbert's booked. If you want to do Usman against Ian Garry, okay. But I'm not doing that. Colby Covington is the fight. Merab Dvalishvili versus Henry Cejudo. Merab had won 9 fights in a row going into this. Just the king of cardio, constantly on the attack. And he had caused so many problems. Beaten Jose Aldo. Beaten Petr Yan. Chito Vera. He had gone through the bantamweights. UFC basically told him, you're going to fight Henry Cejudo, former 2-division champion, former Olympic gold medalist, one of the best combat athletes of all time. If you can beat Henry, like your buddy Aljamain did, you will be next for the bantamweight title. And while I thought Henry Cejudo fought a really good first round on Saturday night, wrestling, in control, better striking, Merab won the fight because he has the pace. He was stronger. He had more willpower and he had more energy as the second and third rounds went on. He didn't slow down. He kept attacking, and Henry just did not have it in him to keep up. Henry fought in 2020, defeated Dominic Cruz with a fourth-round knockout, and retired from the sport of MMA as a champion. Was debated at the time. Dana White was not happy. And then last year, he decided to come back. He lost a very close fight to Aljamain Sterling. Could have went either way. Split decision. But he lost the fight. He could have been champion for all that time. Defeated the Purions. Fought the Aljamain Sterlings earlier on. Beating the Corey Sandhagens. But he takes time away. Comes back. He's not as good as he used to be. And on Saturday night, he couldn't even get the mic because they wanted to give Merab more time to talk about what he wanted next. And Henry Cejudo laid the gloves down in the middle of the octagon. He is retiring. He was going to retire in August, but they ran out of time. They couldn't do it. But he said, prior to the fight, if I lose to Merab, I'm 100% retiring. And it looked that way on Saturday night. With the victory, despite the fact that Merab had not finished, Jose Aldo had not finished, Purion did not finish Henry Cejudo on Saturday night. He is the next number one contender. Dana White confirmed it. He's beaten everybody that you could beat in the division. He's a small dude, but he's such a weird style. He's so hard to prepare for. He's a junkyard dog. And you're winning 10 fights in a row, you deserve an opportunity to become champion. Merab, like Ilia Topuria, is from Georgia. There may be 2 Georgian champions by the end of 2024. He calls for O'Malley. Obviously, O'Malley will fight Chito Vera next month in Miami, Florida. But Merab already went to say, I will be the backup fighter for that event. I'll stay in shape. I'll weigh in. If one of them can't do it, I'll be there. He's ready. He's a gamer. I think Merab's a problem for either of them. This is style. O'Malley's obviously a much better striker than Merab. See, I think Volk took the fight too early. I think his ego was broken after Islam. He should have waited for 300. Don't disagree, and good to hear from you, Mark. Long time no see. I was talking about this earlier, but I don't disagree with you. Volkanovski is just such a gamer, one of the best of all time, no doubt about it. But I think he should have taken more time. I think he should have kind of did what Robert Whittaker did, where Whittaker gets knocked out by Duplessis in July, only comes back in February. You have more time to prepare. You have more time to recover, to heal up, to kind of eat that loss, kind of absorb it and get ready to come back in. I don't think he liked the loss, losing again, all of that. He talked about how he doesn't know what to do when he's not fighting, kind of talked about his mental state when he's not in camp, when he's not preparing for a fight, that he kind of gets lost. And that was sad to hear. But yeah, I very well think you could be right about this, that he should have waited. He should have waited a little bit longer. He takes the earliest fights every time. He does UFC a favor every go-around, where you have, guys like O'Malley, guys like Leon Edwards, who fight sometimes once a year, and or Islam Makhachev, who only fought once in 2023. If I'm a betting man, he only fights once, 2024. They get more time off. When you have guys like Volk, who are pressed into action, have to fight 2-3 times a year because they need main events. Even a guy like, Alex Pereira, who's 205-pounder, who's always in big fights, he's constantly around. Last year, knocked out by Izzy, comes back in July after a knockout in April, defeats former champion Jan Blachowicz. Then, in November, wins the title from Yuri Prohaska. That's a hell of a year. But those quick turnarounds for a guy of that size fighting those dangerous of opponents, kudos to him. But you're not seeing other guys do it. Volkanovski, Izzy, when he was champion, he was doing this. Just said yes every time. I'll take the fight. I'll fight. I want to stay active. Keep beating guys, getting checks, becoming a bigger star. I like Merab's chances against either O'Malley or Cheeto. Because I think both guys are similar. I think O'Malley will beat Marlon Cheeto Vera next month. And quite honestly, I think 299 is a great card. But I think the main event's one of the worst fights on the card. I'm not really interested in that main event. I'm going to watch it, of course. But I think the co-main event's better. Certainly. I love the Song Yadong Peter Yan fight. That's awesome. Curtis Blades, Jailton Almeida, prelim fight? You kidding me? That's interesting. Both guys could be fighting Tom Aspinall. But Merab's a good, tough fighter. Guts out victories, doesn't stop attacking, doesn't stop pressing, finds a way to win every time out. He's another guy that just says, yes, I'll fight him here, it doesn't matter. He'll do it. So credit to him. For Henry Cejudo, hell of a career. One of the best combat athletes of all time. I was thinking about this weekend. I don't have him on my Mount Rushmore for combat athletes, but he's close. For me, number one, obvious, George St. Pierre. Not just because he's Canadian, because he's the best. Period. Multiple division champion. Every time he lost a fight, he came back and beat that fighter in the next go-around, including, the great Matt Serra. George beating Michael Bisping in his finale fight. He was just a beast, took on all comers, and was a champion. Number two, I have Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson. He nearly had the flyweight title of the UFC for a decade. Defeated everybody. Defeated Henry Cejudo, oddly enough, in their first go-round. Cejudo got the better of him in the second. But he knocked out Cejudo. Tried his go-around at 135. 125 was his weight class. His skills, his agility, what he accomplished. Then he goes to one championship, becomes a champion there. Defends it multiple times. He's just as good as it gets, Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson. Number three, I'd have John Jones. You could say John should be one or two. To me, the PEDs count against him. Be clean. George was. Mighty Mouse was. Yes, John Jones was great. No doubt about it. His battles with Daniel Cormier. His battles with Alexander Gustafsson. You could argue he should have lost his belt to Anthony Smith when that was a DQ, but it wasn't a DQ because Anthony Smith is just a top G. I thought he lost the fight to his last light heavyweight title fight against Dominic Reyes. And Dominic Reyes' career was never the same after that fight. He hasn't won a fight since, been knocked out like 4 times. So it's gone downhill for him, but he lost that fight. But John Jones is still great. And my number 4, You could go with Adesanya easily, because I think he's great. Volkanovski in the conversation. If you're a huge Conor McGregor fan, maybe you want to throw McGregor in there. For me, number 4 is Khabib Nurmagomedov. Undefeated. Never really came close to losing a fight. Beat Conor McGregor. Beat Dustin Poirier. Beat Justin Gaethje. But in there with the best of the best. Finished them all, by the way. Just a lethal weapon. You bring Khabib, that brings in Islam Makhachev. That creates this legacy of Dagestan fighters who are just so dangerous every time they get in there. Those would be my 4: George, Demetrius Johnson, John Jones, and Khabib Nurmagomedov. You can make an argument for other guys, but I just think they're that good, that great. If there was a 5th, just out of likability, I'd throw in my guy, Chael Sonnen. Because I like Chael. Was he as good as some of the great fighters? No. But I love Chael. And he's entertaining. And I see he's doing a show with Daniel Cormier on the Mothership coming up. So congrats to him on doing that. But I believe Merab will fight O'Malley, Vera winner, later in 2024. Rest of the card, Fluffy Hernandez submits Roman Kopylov. Impressive victory for him. Hadn't fought in a while. Kopylov, a rising contender, but a big win. He rises. He's inside the top 15 now. He looks good. Amanda Lemos wins a hard-fought one against Mackenzie Dern. Could have went either way. She has the most knockouts now in strawweight history for women in the UFC. So it's another thing for her. She lost to Zhang Weili in August. But she's still a good fighter. She's still hanging around. Good win for her. Marcos Roger de Lima defeats Junior Taffa after Justin Taffa had to pull out. Brutalizes his legs. Couldn't walk on anymore. Falls to the ground. So de Lima, following a brutal knee to the head knockout from Derek Lewis, gets back in the win column with a big victory for himself. Now, before we turn the page, start thinking about UFC Mexico City, which will be on Saturday, Dana White announced the UFC 300 main event on Saturday. He said he would. So much anticipation. You can't wait to hear what it is. And it's, drumroll please, light heavyweight champion Alex Pereira against former light heavyweight champion Jamal Hill. Jamal Hill tore his Achilles way back when. Had to relinquish the title, which gave way for Alex to defeat Yuri Prochazka to become light heavyweight champion. Jamal's been rehabbing. Alex obviously defeated Blachowicz, then defeats Yuri Prochazka. So Jamal gets an opportunity to win back a title he never lost. I think it's a really good fight. I think it's being overshadowed because people don't love it. But I will say this. Alex is a superstar. He's box office. People care about his fights, and they want to see him go in there and do it. Every time he's on the screen, he is interesting. He doesn't have to speak. He has this aura about him that makes him compelling, in my mind. So that's why he's on this. Jamal Hill's interesting because he's kind of a cringy guy. Big on social media. He creates beefs with people. Some people don't like Jamal Hill. So there's intrigue there, you can make the argument. So that's all fine and good. Now, this fight would have made sense for 301 because it's going to be in Rio, in Brazil. And you could say, okay, we're going to put Pantoja on this card, co-main event for the flyweight title. Pereira on that same card, main event for the light heavyweight title against Jamal Hill. And that would have been great. Good fight. 2 Brazilians back home. What it tells me is that, number one, they like Alex, and he is a star. But also, it was reported that Leon Edwards was offered 3 fights, and they couldn't get any to work. Hamzat, they want him to fight, couldn't come over to America because of his passport situation. Shavkat Rakhmonov, I'm not sure why that couldn't work. I know Shavkat was kind of banged up after his last fight. That was in December, but that's not going down. And there was another mystery opponent. And what we know is it was not Bilal Muhammad, who'd been rumored forever, who's, you think the next number 1 contender, the guy who deserves it, all that stuff, right? Not him. Not him for Leon Edwards. But I kind of forget who the other. Oh, and it was Islam Makhachev moving up to try to become double champ. Islam not fighting during Ramadan, so that wasn't going to happen. So you say, okay, can't do that. I don't know why they're not doing Izzy DDP. If you want to save it for International Fight Week, I get it. It's a big fight. You give more guys time to recover. Be at 100%. You build up that fight, announce it in the next month or so, and you have something there. So you go and call Alex, and I guess Jamal Hill only got called on Friday. The pay-per-view's in less than 2 months. Jamal Hill recovering from a torn Achilles. He said in his YouTube channel today, he's getting the bag for this fight because he's doing the UFC a solid, coming back earlier than he probably would have anticipated. Taking the fight, fighting Alex, being the main event of UFC 300, a major event. Him having the opportunity to become light heavyweight champion once again. Defeating Alex, which he said he would do easily. I think it's a fine fight. If you look at the card overall, it's very good. To me, I didn't get my hopes up too big, like a lot of people. Pereira, Jamal Hill, main event. Combined 3 losses between the two of them. Pretty good fight. Xiangwei Li, Yang Xiaonan, 2 Chinese fighters fighting for the first time for a belt in UFC history. Gaethje, Max Holloway for the BMF, the People's main event. Du Bronx, Charles Oliveira against Arman Tsarukyan. Love that fight. Great fight at lightweight. Light heavyweight, Prohaska, Rakic. The winner of this fight could be the next number 1 contender with the main event. Very solid fight. Featherweight, Calvin Kattar, Aljamain Sterling. Aljamain Sterling's first fight at 145 pounds. Like that fight. Middleweight, Bo Nickel, Cody Brundage. Less interested. I think this is another cupcake fight for Bo Nickel. Nevertheless. Bantamweight, Figueiredo, Garbrandt. Love it. Awesome. Apparently it's leading off the event. It's a great fight at Bantamweight. 2 strikers. Love it. Women's Bantamweight, Holly Holm, Kayla Harrison. Great tilt. Awesome fight. See what Kayla can do in the UFC now. Love it. Sadiq Youssef, Diego Lopez. Diego Lopez, rising star. Continue to win. Youssef, like him. Andrade, Marina Rodriguez, fun. Bobby Green, Jim Miller. 2 veterans. Bobby Green, 37. Jim Miller, 40. Have been signed up to fight each other twice in their careers. Didn't happen. they'll see if it can happen for 300. And they're apparently announcing another fight, at least one more. So the card's solid. Is it the best card in UFC history? No. And that's on them for saying it, but I think it's also on the fans getting a little too excited. There's no Brock Lesnar. There's nobody coming around the corner that's going to make your day crazy. But it's a solid fight. Then Pereira said on his YouTube he wants to fight 300, then turn around 21 days later and defend the title in Rio. Back-to-back pay-per-view main events for him, that's not going to happen. But it would be crazy. If anybody could do it, it would be him. And he's for sure serious about doing it because that's just him. I mean, if he could beat Jamal Hill and then fight Magomed Ankalaev in May, that would be crazy. And I'm sure Ankalaev's probably sitting there going, shit, I should be fighting, not Jamal Hill. But light heavyweight has some contenders now. You have some guys who likely feel that they should be fighting for the belt, that they should be champion. Ankalaev's certainly in that conversation. Damn good fighter. Has beaten some of the best guys in the division. But it's interesting nonetheless, that's for sure. UFC, always something happening, always shifting. UFC 298 in the books. Only 3 weeks till our next pay-per-view. We have another event with a crowd this weekend in Mexico City. A 5-round co-main event, a 5-round main event. You get the 19-year-old sensation, Raul Rojas Jr. on the card this weekend. There's some fun fights. Should be a good event. Looking forward to it. UFC 298 in the books. Very solid pay-per-view on Saturday night. Let's go from the octagon to the ice. The play of Auston Matthews over the last 4 or 5 days has been incredible. Goes from 42 goals to 49 goals in a 5-day span. Has 6 hat tricks on the season. Now holds a 10-goal lead for most goals in the NHL. The Maple Leafs have won 4 in a row since Morgan Rielly's been suspended, and they'll be a heavy favorite to win their 5th in a row tomorrow night in Arizona against the Arizona Coyotes, who have lost 10 straight and are in big trouble and look like they're going to miss the playoffs for another year in a row. But every time it touches Auston Matthews' stick, it's going in. He's carrying the weight for this team. They played like dog shit against Philly. He came alive. They won the game. I didn't watch the game against Anaheim, a couple of reasons. I was at a wedding, and even if I wasn't at a wedding, I wouldn't be watching Toronto-Anaheim, I can guarantee you that. But he gets 3 goals. He has a huge night again. Then yesterday afternoon, they're playing in St. Louis. Afternoon game, and he ends up getting the game winner. It's just finding a way to make plays, finding the space on the ice to be productive. The team is playing better. The goaltending helps, no doubt about it, but I will say for Toronto, what they're doing more is they have the puck. They have the puck, it's limiting opposing team scoring chances, which makes their team defense look better. Because it is and isn't at the same time. It's kind of an optical illusion. But the team's winning games. They have some productivity. They look better. And they have some momentum with the trade deadline in 2 weeks from Friday. And winning 4 in a row, possibly 5, possibly 6 if you beat Vegas on Thursday, will spark the momentum of this team should do something. Let's trade assets again. I will remain steadfast with this opinion. I don't think the Maple Leafs should do much. I don't think they should be a big seller because this team is going to win or lose depending on what they have, which is every single year. They are not a team built that's like a team that's going to win. Vegas won because they were a great team. Period. Top to bottom, they were great. Toronto's not. They have a great top. The middle of the house is mediocre and their foundation shit. So to keep it together, they need that top to be very sturdy, to be productive, to be great, to get solid goaltending, either it's Samsonov or Joseph Woll or Martin Jones or to be named later. They need to be solid. They need to own the puck and hope for some luck in playoff series that they're not involved in. I said this before. Do I think the Toronto Maple Leafs can beat the Boston Bruins in a playoff series? I do. The Boston Bruins are vulnerable. The Boston Bruins are a year, maybe a little bit away from having to decide where they're going to go. Marchand's played 1,000 games. JVR's tail end of his career. Guys are getting older. Teams it's a weird group. Good goaltender. You're going to likely lose Swayman and or Ullmark this coming summer to free agency. So your goaltending won't be as good as it has been in prior seasons. But the way they're built up the middle, a young defense, missing key components, I think the Maple Leafs can compete with them. I think the Florida Panthers are the best team in the Eastern Conference, period. That includes the Rangers and the Metropolitan. I think Florida's better than anybody. The way they're playing, they beat the Tampa Bay Lightning 9-2. On just completely crushing them on the road. Looking for Hagee, Tkachuk, Bennett, Reinhart. They can come at you in waves and they score goals in bunches. Tkachuk's playing like a superstar again. Bobrovsky is one of the best goaltenders in the league. They are a dangerous club. But Auston Matthews scoring goals like this. Marner being as creative as he has been lately. William Nylander having 3 shorthanded goals on the season, which is his career high, by the way, and it's only February 20th. You need those guys to be great in the postseason, which they've never gotten together. Matthews might be good for 3 games. Marner might be good for a stretch. Then Nylander's pretty much been good the entire time. But you haven't seen them be all great together for long periods of time in the playoffs. If you can get that, you got a chance. You have a chance to be good. Will it happen? I don't know. Kind of remains to be seen at this point. But if Matthews can score 70, he's only 21 goals away from it, he will absolutely be in the Hart Trophy discussion. Do I think if he scores 70, it's an absolute lock that he wins the award? I don't. I've seen that argument made. I don't agree with it. Nikita Kucherov's been pretty damn good all season long as well. 94 points. That's, it's pretty good. 56 games. Best player in the NHL in the power play. No debate. McKinnon's got 91. He's been pretty rock solid for the Colorado Avalanche. They've had their problems. Don't look now, but McDavid's only 11 points back of Kucherov. He's starting to heat up. Pasternak has 80 points. But Matthews certainly is up there. If he has 70, he will be one of the final 3 nominations guaranteed. It's not a lock he wins it. Will he be in the conversation? Yes. But is it automatic, just hand him the award? No. And I've seen that argument. I simply disagree with it. If you score 70 goals and you finish 7th, are you really that good? finish third in your division. If that's what ends up happening for this team, what's 70 goals? Then should McDavid have won the MVP when Edmonton missed the playoffs, or when they finish like Taylor Hall Taylor Hall winning the MVP award was dumb because it ruined it for a while because he shouldn't have won it. Should have been McKinnon that year. Nevertheless, we had some outdoor games this weekend. I watched the game on Sunday. I'll say it was a fun game, chaotic, and there's a lot of chaotic games lately. You had that comeback for the Rangers. I mean, yesterday you had 3 hat-tricks in one game with the Canucks and the Minnesota Wild. Nuts. You had the Jets up 3-1. Flames come back to win 6-3. That game was a lot of matinee craziness. You had Bruins beating the Stars in a 9-round gimmick, including 2 players in that game scoring their first career NHL goals. Cool story. Red Wings get another win against the Kraken. Vegas, 28-year-old making his NHL debut, 2 points, first star of the game. Great story. And Bedard had 3 points in a losing effort for the Blackhawks, but he's been great since coming back. But the Stadium Series was good. 2 games in 2 days. I don't think that's a horrible idea. New York area, you get Philly, Jersey, Islanders, Rangers. I like that. Sounds like Columbus is going to get one next year. Okay. Again, you want to grow the game, great. Columbus sucks, however, and I don't think they'll be much better next year. So, do people want to go to that game? Do people want to go to Columbus? No. But, hey. But I have some props for Columbus. I rarely give props to a team like Columbus because they're so inadequate. And they make a lot of stupid decisions and they don't deserve praise. I don't give people praise when they don't deserve it, but I'm going to give some to Columbus right now. Last week, the Columbus Blue Jackets fired Jarmo, and this was on Thursday. After 12 seasons as GM, with a year left on his contract. Doesn't sound like Columbus behavior. You're firing people that still are owed money. I mean, they're paying Babcock, they're paying Brad Larson, they're paying Kekalainen. Now, they're paying a lot of guys to not work, which in a small market must make that owner just cringe. But they're doing it. So kudos. The reason I think I give Columbus credit is because if you know your GM is on the hot seat, you're likely going to fire him after the season. Do not let him go through another trade deadline making the trades for your organization. JD, John Davidson, is still working for Columbus as of right now. I don't think he will be that much longer. It sounds like he's going to retire. Sounds like he won't be there for the long term. But hey, JD, go do your thing. Great executive, accomplished a lot. Let's move forward here. Hire the next GM of the franchise. I think you're going to have to hire a new head coach. Hire a good one this time. And move forward. But Kekalainen had 12 years. He tried to be competitive, to his credit. But it didn't work. He won 1 playoff round in 12 years. I don't count that Toronto one because that was in the bubble. But you beat Tampa when they were a record-setting regular season team. But you kept Bobrovsky and you kept Duchesne and you kept these guys you could have dealt at the deadline, Panarin, and you got nothing for them. And it's really fucked you ever since. Those were mistakes. He didn't help the team. He set them back. They're not close now. Laine's out with mental health problems. Who knows what the hell that is? You can't question it. Can't question it. Gaudreau's been a fucking disaster. They don't have a goal. Merzlikins requested to trade it despite the fact that he's got horrible numbers. Benching David Jiricek. Kent Johnson hates it. I mean, it's a mess. It's a mess in Columbus. I don't know where this goes, but I applaud Columbus for doing this because they had to, and they did. Don't let a GM that you don't want making decisions make decisions for a trade deadline and then fire him after. It's a stupid move. You're going to let somebody run the books of your company knowing you're going to fire them, but I don't want to fire them before this date. Stupid. Fire them. Gross set, which they did. Tonight in the NHL, Islanders Penguins. Tell you what, the Penguins, Sunday night they blew a game to the Kings. Didn't get a point. Gensel's out until after the trade deadline. I think he's going to be traded despite the fact that he's hurt. Penguins, they're 7 points out of a playoffs. They're in trouble. Senators beat the Ning last night. They're in Florida tonight in a back-to-back. Dallas at the Rangers. Logan Stankoven. Remember him from the World Junior team? Team Canada. Won a gold medal. He leads the American Hockey League in points. 21 years old. He gets recalled. Sounds like he's going to make his NHL debut tonight at Madison Square Garden. Cool moment for him and the Dallas Stars as they come off a loss to Boston yesterday. Devils, Capitals, Minnesota in Winnipeg. Minnesota coming off a big win. Winnipeg a big loss. Canucks in Colorado. Canucks obviously losing, giving up a 10 spot to Minnesota yesterday. Preds in Vegas tonight and Blue Jackets in Los Angeles. So some pretty interesting games in the NHL tonight. Thursday we'll be back on the podcast. NBA returns on Thursday. Didn't watch any of the All-Star game. Heard it was trash. People complained about it. 211 to 186. All-Star game. Woof. Slam dunk contest. I didn't even know some of the people in it. That's not good. Mac McClung. Aaron Gordon saying it was trash. So, All-Star weekend, for the NBA. Not really that surprised. But, got the NHL this week. NBA returns. Like I said, MLB around the corner. Golf last week at the Genesis. Hideki Matsuyama wins. He now has a victory at the Genesis, the Memorial, and at the Masters. Hell of a career, including shooting -9 on a Sunday. Tiger couldn't play he said it was an illness. He doesn't look good. Didn't look healthy. Worried about him. Will he play at the Players in March? Does he get to play? I don't really know, honestly. Just doesn't look. I mean, he said it was an illness, but he's walking around with that thing as a cane at the end of Friday's round. We're getting closer to March Madness, about a month out to that tournament. Connecticut, the number one team in the country, they continue to dominate people. Like I said, we got Mexico Open for golf this week. Later on, 2 really interesting MMA cards on Saturday that we'll preview later in the week. So that's all forthcoming. We'll be back on Thursday. It was great to be back tonight. Great to be chatting with all of you. Take care. Stay warm. We'll talk to you Thursday here on To The Point.